The rain fell in relentless sheets over Seattle, painting the city in a gray haze that seemed to cling to everything. Ethan Caldwell pulled his worn jacket tighter around his shoulders, the cold seeping through the thin fabric as he hurried along the slick pavement toward the towering glass structure of Pinnacle Solutions. The office building loomed ahead, its sleek lines and glowing lights a stark contrast to the gritty reality of his life. Ethan was a janitor here, one of the invisible hands that kept the corporate machine gleaming. At 32, he carried the weight of the world, or at least the weight of his 8-year-old daughter Lily, in his calloused hands. Inside the lobby buzzed with the morning rush. Men and women in tailored suits swept past, their voices sharp with purpose, their eyes fixed on phones or distant goals. Ethan slipped through the revolving doors, shaking off the rain, and headed toward the janitorial closet. His reflection flickered in the polished marble floor. Tall but slightly hunched, brown hair damp and curling at the edges, hazel eyes shadowed with fatigue. He caught a glimpse of the locket tucked beneath his collar, a small silver oval he'd worn since childhood. It was the only thing he had from a life he barely remembered, a faint tether to a past he couldn't quite grasp. Morning Ethan called Sarah a receptionist with a warm smile and kind eyes. She was one of the few who really saw him beyond the broom and the faded uniform. Her auburn hair was pulled into a neat bun, and she leaned over the desk, offering him a paper cup of coffee from the machine. "Thanks, Sarah," Ethan said, his voice low, but grateful. He took the cup, the warmth seeping into his palms. "You didn't have to," she waved him off. "You look like you need it more than me. Rough night." Ethan gave a small nod, thinking of Lily's fever that had kept him up the stack of medical bills on the kitchen counter, the art supplies she dreamed of but he couldn't afford. "Lily's been under the weather," he said, simply not wanting to burden her. Sarah's eyes softened, but before she could reply, a sharp voice cut through the lobby. Caldwell, Victor Hensley, the facilities manager, strode toward him, his polished shoes clicking against the floor. Victor was a wiry man in his late 40s with a permanent sneer and a penchant for power. His suit was immaculate, his tie a shade of red that screamed authority. "You're late. Again." "What? You think this place cleans itself?" Ethan straightened, setting the coffee down on a nearby ledge. "Sorry, Mr. Hensley. Bus was delayed in the rain." Victor's eyes narrowed, his lip curling. "Excuses don't mop floors. Get to it. And don't let me catch you slacking with the staff." He cast a pointed glance at Sarah, who busied herself with paperwork, her cheeks flushing. Ethan nodded, biting back a retort. He couldn't afford to lose this job, not with Lily depending on him. He grabbed his cart, the familiar weight of cleaning supplies a grounding force, and started toward the elevators. The day stretched ahead, a blur of mopping, scrubbing, and emptying trash cans, all while dodging Victor's watchful eye. By mid-morning, the office was alive with the hum of corporate life. Ethan worked quietly, blending into the background as executives barked orders and interns scurried past. He was wiping down a conference room table when Victor appeared in the doorway, his arms crossed. "Caldwell, you missed a spot in the lobby yesterday," Victor said, his tone dripping with disdain. "You think this is some charity case? Pinnacle's got standards." Ethan paused, rag in hand, his jaw tightening. "I'll double-check it, sir." "You'll do more than that," Victor snapped. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a pair of glossy black loafers scuffed at the toes. "These need shining. Now, in the lobby where everyone can see how you earn your keep." Ethan's stomach churned. The lobby. It wasn't enough that Victor belittled him in private. Now he wanted a public spectacle. "Sir, I don't talk back." Victor cut in, tossing the shoes at Ethan's feet. They landed with a thud, drawing curious glances from nearby employees. "Do it, or you're out the door. You and your kid can sleep on the street for all I care." The words hit like a punch. Ethan thought of Lily, her bright smile despite their struggles, her sketches pinned to their tiny apartment's walls. He swallowed his pride, picked up the shoes, and headed to the lobby. The eyes of co-workers followed him, some pitying, others indifferent. Sarah watched from her desk, her expression a mix of anger and helplessness. Ethan knelt on the cold marble, the polishing kit trembling in his hands. The lobby was a stage, and he was the unwilling performer. Victor stood nearby, arms crossed, smirking as employees passed by, whispering. Ethan's fingers worked mechanically, buffing the leather, his mind a storm of humiliation and resolve. He couldn't let Lily down. Not now, not ever. As he worked, memories of his childhood crept in, fragmented images of foster homes, stern faces, and the locket he'd clung to like a lifeline. He'd been told his parents were gone, lost in a fire when he was 4, but the locket suggested otherwise. Why had it been left with him? Who was the woman in the photo inside? He pushed the thoughts away, focusing on the task, but the weight of the locket against his chest felt heavier than ever. A woman in a sharp blazer paused nearby, her gaze lingering on Ethan. She was older, with silver-streaked hair and an air of quiet authority. Her eyes flicked to the locket peeking out from his collar, and something unreadable crossed her face. Surprise, perhaps, or recognition. She adjusted her glasses, her lips parting as if to speak, but then she turned and walked away, her heels echoing in the lobby. Ethan frowned, unsettled by the encounter, but he couldn't dwell on it. Victor was still watching, his smirk unwavering. When Ethan finished, he stood, his knees aching, and handed the shoes back to Victor, who inspected them with exaggerated care. "Adequate," Victor said, tossing them into his bag. "Now get back to work. This place doesn't pay you to stand around." Ethan returned to his cart, his face burning. Sarah caught his eye, offering a small, encouraging nod, but it did little to ease the sting. He spent the rest of the day in a haze, cleaning bathrooms, vacuuming carpets, and avoiding Victor's shadow. By the time his shift ended, the rain had stopped, leaving the city dripping and reflective under the streetlights. Ethan's walk home took him through Pike Place Market, where vendors were packing up their stalls. The air smelled of fish and damp wood, and he paused to buy a small bouquet of daisies for Lily, a rare treat that cost him a few precious dollars. He thought of her laughter, her sketches, her dreams of art school. She deserved better than this life, better than a father who scrubbed floors and polished shoes for a man like Victor. At their apartment, a cramped one-bedroom in a sagging building near the waterfront, Ethan found Lily curled up on the couch, her fever finally broken. Her dark curls framed her face, and her sketchpad lay open, filled with vibrant drawings of flowers and imaginary creatures. She looked up, her hazel eyes, so like his own, lighting up. "Daddy," she chirped, holding up a drawing of a garden bursting with color. "Look, I made this for you, for when you're sad at work." Ethan's heart ached as he knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her forehead. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. You're gonna be an artist someday." "Promise?" she asked, her voice small but hopeful. "Promise," he said, forcing a smile. He handed her the daisies, and her face lit up, her small hands cradling the flowers like treasure. As he tucked her in, he thought of the bills piling up, the rent, due soon, the art classes Lily dreamed of. He'd do anything to keep that spark in her eyes. After Lily fell asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table, the apartment quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. He was about to head to bed when he noticed a letter slipped under the door. No stamp, no return address, just his name in elegant script. His pulse quickened as he opened it, revealing a single line. "The locket holds your truth. Seek Eleanor Grayson." Ethan's breath caught. Eleanor Grayson was a name he knew from headlines, a billionaire tech CEO who'd built a software empire in Silicon Valley. Her face was everywhere on magazines, billboards, news segments about innovation and philanthropy. Why would someone link her to him? He opened the locket, staring at the faded photo inside. The woman's hazel eyes, her sharp cheekbones. Could it be Eleanor? The resemblance was uncanny, but the idea seemed absurd. He'd grown up with nothing, shuffled through foster homes, told his parents were dead. Yet, the letter, the locket, the woman in the lobby, they stirred a restless hope he couldn't ignore. The next morning, Ethan returned to Pinnacle, the letter folded in his pocket, its words looping in his mind. He moved through his tasks, mechanically mopping floors and wiping down glass, but his thoughts were elsewhere. During a break, he found Sarah in the break room sipping tea and scrolling through her phone. "You okay?" she asked, glancing up. "You've been quiet all morning." Ethan hesitated, then pulled out the letter. "This came last night. I don't know what to make of it." Sarah read it, her brow furrowing. "Eleanor Grayson, the tech mogul. That's strange. But that locket of yours, it's old, right? Maybe it's connected." "I don't know," Ethan said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I've had it since I was a kid. It's all I've got from before." Sarah leaned forward, her voice gentle. "Look, Ethan, I know things are tough, especially with Victor. But this letter, it's a lead. Maybe it's nothing, but what if it's something you deserve to know who you are?" Her words hit home. Ethan had spent years surviving, not questioning. But now, with Lily's future at stake and his own dignity battered, he felt a spark of determination. He wasn't just a janitor, not just a single dad struggling to make ends meet. There was a story behind the locket behind him, and he was ready to uncover it. As he pushed his cart through the office, Victor's voice rang out again, barking orders about a spilled coffee in the boardroom. Ethan nodded, his jaw tight, but his mind was elsewhere. The locket, the letter, the woman in the photo, they were pieces of a puzzle he'd ignored for too long. For Lily, for himself, he'd find the truth, no matter where it led. The days blurred into a routine of quiet determination for Ethan. He went through the motions at Pinnacle Solutions, mopping up spills and scrubbing surfaces, but his mind was a whirlwind of questions. The mysterious letter burned a hole in his pocket, and every spare moment found him stealing glances at his phone, searching for information on Eleanor Grayson. She was a titan in the tech world, a self-made billionaire whose company, Grayson Innovations, had revolutionized data security. Articles painted her as a visionary, fierce, innovative, and notoriously private about her personal life. There were whispers of a tragic past, a lost child during a turbulent time in her early career, but details were scarce, buried under layers of corporate success. Ethan couldn't shake the resemblance between the woman in his locket and the photos of Eleanor online. The hazel eyes, the determined set of her jaw, it was uncanny. But doubt crept in. Why would a billionaire's son end up in foster care scrubbing floors in Seattle? It felt like a fairy tale too improbable to be real. Still, the letter urged him to seek her, and for the first time in years, Ethan allowed himself to hope for something more. One evening, after tucking Lily into bed, Ethan sat at his laptop in the dim light of the apartment. Lily's soft breathing filled the room, a comforting rhythm, as he typed Eleanor Grayson family history into the search bar. The results were sparse mentions of her late husband, a brief marriage that ended in widowhood, and vague references to a son who vanished during a chaotic period in her life. A fire. An accident. The articles danced around the truth, leaving Ethan frustrated. He closed the laptop, rubbing his temples, the locket cool against his skin. At work, Sarah became his confidant. During lunch breaks in the break room, she'd listen as he shared his findings, her eyes wide with intrigue. "This could be huge, Ethan," she said one day, stirring her coffee. "If she's really your mom, your life could change overnight." Ethan shook his head, a wry smile on his lips. "Or it's a cruel joke. Either way, I need proof. But how do I even approach someone like her?" Sarah leaned in, her voice conspiratorial. "There's the company gala next week. Pinnacle's hosting it for big clients, and guess who's catering? Grayson Innovations is on the guest list. Eleanor might be there. You're on overtime duty, cleaning up after." Ethan's heart raced. A gala. It was a long shot, but it felt like fate aligning. "I guess I'll keep my eyes open," he said, trying to sound casual. The night of the gala arrived with a crisp Seattle chill. The office building transformed into a glittering venue, strings of lights draping the lobby tables laden with hors d'oeuvres and champagne flutes. Ethan arrived early, dressed in his uniform, pushing a cart of supplies. The air hummed with laughter and clinking glasses as guests arrived, suits and gowns mingling under the chandeliers. Victor was in his element, schmoozing with executives, his voice booming. He spotted Ethan and sneered. "Caldwell, stay out of sight, unless there's a mess. We don't need the help mingling with the elite." Ethan nodded, biting his tongue, and retreated to the shadows. He worked discreetly, clearing empty plates and wiping spills, his eyes scanning the crowd. Then there she was, Eleanor Grayson, entering with an entourage. She was elegant in a midnight blue gown, her silver hair swept up, exuding quiet power. Ethan's breath caught as she moved through the room, greeting guests with a poised smile. He busied himself near the buffet, his heart pounding. As fate would have it, a waiter bumped into him, spilling red wine across the floor. Ethan knelt to clean it, his hands steady despite the nerves. Eleanor paused nearby, her gaze drifting down. Her eyes locked on the locket, now visible as his collar shifted. She froze, her face paling. "That locket," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the music. She stepped closer, her hand reaching out as if to touch it, then pulling back. "Where did you get that?" Ethan looked up, meeting her hazel eyes, eyes that mirrored his own. It's mine," he stammered, standing slowly. "From when I was a kid." Eleanor's composure cracked, a flicker of shock crossing her features. "May I see it?" she asked, her tone urgent. Hesitant, Ethan unclasped it and handed it over. She opened it, her fingers trembling as she gazed at the photo inside. Tears welled in her eyes. "This is me," she said, her voice breaking. 28 years ago. My son, he had this locket when he was taken from me." Ethan's world tilted. "Taken? What do you mean?" Eleanor glanced around, then pulled him aside to a quiet corner. "It was during a corporate espionage scandal. My husband was killed in a fire set by rivals. I thought my son perished too, but the body was never identified. I searched for years, but nothing. Until now." Flashbacks flooded Ethan's mind, fragmented memories of smoke screams, a woman's arms wrapping around him before chaos erupted. He was 4, hidden in a closet as flames licked the walls. Rescuers found him, but in the confusion he was placed in foster care, his identity lost in paperwork errors. No one connected the dots to the Grayson name. He'd grown up alone, believing his family gone. Eleanor's story matched the gaps in his past. I never stopped looking, she said, clutching the locket. You're my son. I know it. Ethan reeled, emotions crashing over him, disbelief, anger, longing. If that's true, why didn't you find me sooner? He asked, his voice raw. Before she could respond, Victor interrupted, his face twisted in annoyance. Caldwell, what the hell? Get back to work. Eleanor turned her eyes sharp. This man is with me, she said coolly. Victor faltered, mumbling an apology before slinking away. But the encounter left Ethan shaken. He finished his shift in a daze, the gala's glamour fading into insignificance. At home, he held Lily close, her innocent questions about his day unanswered as his mind raced. The next day, Victor's cruelty peaked. During a busy morning, Ethan accidentally knocked over a trash bin in the hallway, papers scattering. Victor exploded, berating him in front of the entire floor. You're worthless, Caldwell. Pack your things, you're fired. Ethan stood frozen, humiliation burning as co-workers watched. But Sarah, hidden nearby, pulled out her phone and recorded the tirade, capturing Victor's venomous words. She uploaded it anonymously to social media, tagging Pinnacle Solutions. By afternoon, the video went viral, sparking outrage over workplace abuse. Ethan left the building jobless and numb, heading home to face Lily. How would he explain? But as he walked, his phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. Ethan, it's Eleanor. We need to talk, please. He ignored it, at first bitterness festering. Why now? After years of struggle, but curiosity and desperation won out. He met her at a quiet cafe near the waterfront, the Space Needle looming in the distance. Eleanor arrived alone, her demeanor softer. I saw the video, she said. That man, Victor, he'll face consequences. But more importantly, I want to prove this to you. A DNA test, if you're willing. Ethan hesitated, thinking of Lily, of the life he'd built from nothing. Why should I trust you? He asked. Because I've lost too much already, she replied, her eyes pleading. And if you're my son, I won't lose you again. Reluctantly, he agreed. They went to a private clinic, swabs taken, results promised in days. As they waited, Eleanor shared stories of her rise from a young inventor scraping by to a CEO commanding billions. She spoke of the fire, the loss, the endless search. Ethan listened, pieces falling into place, but resentment lingered. He'd suffered while she thrived. The call came 3 days later. The test confirmed it. Ethan was her son. Joy and sorrow mingled as Eleanor embraced him, tears flowing. But Ethan pulled back, torn. This changes everything, he said. But I don't know if I'm ready. Eleanor nodded, understanding. Take your time. But know this, you're not alone anymore. As Ethan returned home, the weight of revelation pressed on him. His past was rewritten, his future uncertain. For Lily's sake, he'd navigate this new world. But the scars of his old life ran deep. Hope flickered, fragile but real, as he stepped into the unknown. The revelation spread like wildfire through Ethan's thoughts, replaying the clinic's sterile room where the doctor had announced the results. 99.9% match. The man had said, his voice clinical, but the impact was anything but. Eleanor had gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, while Ethan sat stunned, the world narrowing to that single piece of paper. Back in his apartment, Ethan paced the small living room, Lily's drawings scattered on the table like colorful reminders of his reality. She was at a neighbor's for the afternoon, giving him space to process. He picked up one of her sketches, a family portrait, with just the two of them holding hands under a sunny sky. Now there was a third figure, lurking in the shadows of his mind, Eleanor. He sank onto the couch, the locket in his palm. It wasn't just a trinket anymore. It was evidence, a bridge to a life he never knew. Flashbacks returned, unbidden nights in foster homes. The ache of abandonment. The determination that forged him into the man he was. How could he reconcile that with being the heir to a fortune? His phone rang, jolting him. It was Sarah. "Ethan, oh my God, the video's everywhere. Victor's been suspended. Pinnacle's in damage control. Are you okay?" "I'm processing," he said, his voice distant. He told her about Eleanor, the test, everything. Sarah listened, her gasps punctuating his story. "This is incredible," she said finally. "You deserve this, Ethan, after everything Victor put you through." But deserved or not, it felt overwhelming. Eleanor had offered him a guest room at her Seattle penthouse resources for Lily, but Ethan resisted. "I need to do this on my terms," he'd told her. Days turned into a tense limbo. Eleanor respected his space, sending thoughtful texts, photos from her past stories of his father, invitations to dinner. Ethan met her once more at a park overlooking Puget Sound. They walked the paths, the water lapping below as she filled in the blanks. "Your father was my partner in everything," she said, her voice wistful. "We built Grayson from a garage startup. The fire. It was sabotage. I thought I'd lost you both." Ethan listened, anger softening into empathy. She'd suffered too, her empire a shield against grief. "I built walls," she admitted. "But seeing you, it's like getting a second chance." He shared his own stories of Lily's birth, her mother's abandonment, the nights he worked double shifts to afford her medicine. Eleanor listened, her eyes misting. "You're stronger than I ever was," she said. Victor's downfall provided a distraction. The viral video led to investigations, former employees coming forward with similar tales. Pinnacle issued apologies, offering Ethan his job back with a promotion. But he declined. "I'm done being invisible," he told Sarah over coffee. As the week ended, Ethan brought Lily to meet Eleanor. The penthouse was a world away, sleek marble panoramic views, but Eleanor's warmth eased the awkwardness. Lily, shy at first, warmed up when Eleanor showed her an art studio. "For budding artists," she said with a wink. Watching them, Ethan felt the tear in his heart mend a little. Resentment lingered, but hope bloomed. This was his family lost, found imperfect. As they laughed over drawings, Ethan knew the journey was just beginning, a path from shadows to light. The revelation hung over Ethan like a double-edged sword, sharp with promise, heavy with uncertainty. Days after the DNA confirmation, he found himself standing at the threshold of Eleanor's sprawling estate on the outskirts of Seattle, overlooking Lake Washington. The house was a modern marvel of glass and steel, with manicured gardens and a private dock where yachts bobbed gently. It was a far cry from his cramped apartment, where the walls seemed to close in with every unpaid bill. Lily clutched his hand, her wide eyes taking in the grandeur, a mix of excitement and apprehension mirroring his own. "This is Grandma's house," Lily whispered, her voice echoing in the vast foyer as Eleanor welcomed them with open arms. Eleanor smiled, kneeling to Lily's level. "Yes, sweetheart. And it's your home too, if you want it to be." She glanced at Ethan, her expression hopeful but cautious. She'd given him space, but the invitation to stay had been insistent. "Just until you get on your feet," she'd said. Ethan nodded, swallowing his pride. Unemployment loomed, and Lily's needs came first. They moved in that week, their few belongings dwarfed by the opulent rooms. Ethan's suite had a view of the lake, a king-sized bed, and a bathroom larger than his old living room. But as he unpacked, a sense of displacement settled in. He wandered the halls at night feeling like an intruder in this world of wealth. The staff maids, chefs, gardeners treated him with deference, but their politeness only highlighted how out of place he felt. He missed the simplicity of his old life, the struggle that had defined him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ethan found Eleanor in her study. It was a cozy room lined with bookshelves, a stark contrast to the rest of the house's sleek minimalism. She was poring over old photo albums, her fingers tracing faded images. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, looking up with a knowing smile. Ethan sat across from her, the leather chair enveloping him. "It's all too much. I keep waiting for the catch." Eleanor closed the album, her eyes softening. "There is no catch, Ethan. But I understand. This life, it's not what you know. Let me show you where I came from." She pulled out another album, this one worn and yellowed. Photos of a young Eleanor emerged, a girl in hand-me-down clothes working odd jobs in a small California town. "I wasn't born into this. I was a single mother at 20 scraping by after your father died in that fire. I thought I'd lost everything, you, him, our dreams." She shared stories of her struggles, nights coding in a dingy apartment, while you slept in a crib facing skepticism as a woman in tech building Grayson Innovations from nothing. "I poured my grief into work," she said, her voice trembling. "But success came at a cost. I became isolated, driven. Finding you, it's reminded me of what truly matters." Ethan listened, the walls between them crumbling. He saw echoes of his own resilience in her tale, the perseverance that kept her going just as it had him. For the first time, he opened up fully, sharing the hardships of raising Lily alone, the foster homes that taught him self-reliance, the daily battles against invisibility. "I thought I was alone," he admitted. "But maybe we were both fighting the same ghosts." Their conversations deepened their bond. Eleanor became a grandmother to Lily, spoiling her with art supplies and lessons. Ethan enrolled Lily in a prestigious art school in Seattle, her eyes lighting up at the prospect of classes with real instructors. "Daddy, I can paint all day," she exclaimed, hugging him tightly. Watching her thrive eased Ethan's unease. This wealth wasn't just luxury, it was opportunity, a chance to break the cycle of struggle, but old wounds festered. News of Victor's downfall reached Ethan through Sarah, who kept in touch via texts and calls. The viral video had snowballed. Pinnacle Solutions faced lawsuits, and Victor was fired amid public outcry. "He's ruined," Sarah said over the phone, "but he deserves it." Ethan felt a pull to confront him, to close that chapter. With Eleanor's encouragement, he arranged a meeting at a neutral cafe downtown. Victor arrived disheveled. His once immaculate suit rumpled, his sneer replaced by desperation. "Caldwell," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. "What do you want? Come to gloat?" Ethan sat straight, his voice steady. "No, I want you to understand what you did. You treated me like dirt because you could. But that says more about you than me." He slid a folder across the table, evidence of Victor's abuses compiled by Eleanor's lawyers. "This could ruin you further, but I'm offering a choice. Apologize, seek help, or face the consequences." Victor balked, but the weight of his isolation cracked his facade. I'm sorry," he whispered, tears welling. "I was insecure, lashing out." Ethan nodded, not forgiving, but finding closure. "Learn from it. Treat people better." As he left, a burden lifted. Revenge wasn't sweet, but justice was. Inspired by his journey, Ethan channeled his experiences into purpose. With Eleanor's resources, he founded a community program in Seattle, Rise Up, a nonprofit supporting single parents with job training, childcare, and financial aid. He volunteered personally, sharing his story at workshops. "I was a janitor, humiliated daily," he'd say to groups of weary faces, "but I learned that our worth isn't in our jobs or bank accounts. It's in our resilience, our kindness." The program grew, partnering with local businesses, including Grayson Innovations. Sarah joined as a coordinator, her friendship a constant anchor. Lily helped design flyers, her artwork bringing color to the initiative. Eleanor beamed with pride, seeing her son transform pain into progress. Months passed, and Ethan stood on the estate's balcony, watching Lily play in the garden below. The sun warmed his face, the lake sparkling like a promise. He'd integrated into this new life, blending his roots with his heritage. No longer just a survivor, he was a builder, a father, a son. Reflecting on it all, Ethan realized the profound lessons woven through his story. Life had taught him that everyone deserves respect, no matter their circumstances, whether scrubbing floors or leading empires. Perseverance in the face of hardship builds character, turning obstacles into stepping stones. And kindness extended even to those who wrong us has the power to heal and transform. True worth comes from within, not from wealth or status. By embracing our potential and uplifting others, we rise above adversity, creating ripples of positive change. As he joined Lily in the garden, her laughter filling the air, Ethan knew he'd found his truth. And in sharing it, he hoped to inspire others to find theirs. The estate buzzed with new energy as Ethan's program took off. Rise Up's first event was a success. A workshop at a community center in downtown Seattle, where single parents gathered for resume building and motivational talks. Ethan stood at the podium, nerves fluttering, but his voice grew steady as he spoke. "I know what it's like to feel invisible," he began, the room quieting. "To work endlessly just to keep the lights on, to worry if your child will have a better future. But here's what I've learned. Our struggles don't define us. They refine us. With support, we can break through." Attendees nodded, sharing their own stories during breaks. One woman, a waitress with 2 kids, approached him afterward. "Your story gives me hope," she said. "I thought I was stuck." "You're not," Ethan replied, handing her a pamphlet. "We're here to help." Eleanor attended, sitting in the back, her pride evident. Later over dinner, she raised a glass. "To new beginnings," she toasted. "And to you for turning loss into legacy," Lily chimed in. "And to art school, I drew a picture of us all." She unveiled a vibrant sketch, Ethan, Eleanor, and herself, hands linked under a rainbow. As the program expanded, Ethan balanced his role with family time. He and Eleanor took trips visiting Silicon Valley, where she showed him Grayson's headquarters. "This could be yours one day," she said, but Ethan shook his head. "I want to build my own path," he replied. "Rise Up is my legacy." Victor, true to his word, sought therapy and volunteered at a shelter, a small redemption Ethan learned through mutual contacts. It reinforced his belief in second chances. Sarah became a fixture in their lives, her bond with Ethan deepening into something more quiet, dates at coffee shops, shared laughs over past ordeals. "From receptionist to program director," she teased. "We've come far." One quiet afternoon, Ethan sat with Lily by the lake, sketching together. "Daddy, are we rich now?" she asked innocently. He smiled. "In ways that matter, yes. But remember, money doesn't make us happy. Love and hard work do." She nodded solemnly, her wisdom beyond her years. Ethan's reflections often turned to the broader lessons. In a world quick to judge by appearances, His journey underscored the importance of empathy. Treating others with dignity, regardless of their station, fosters a better society. Perseverance isn't just enduring, it's actively seeking growth amid trials. And kindness, it's a superpower capable of mending broken spirits and inspiring change. He shared these insights in a TEDx talk invited after Rise Up's success. The audience applauded as he concluded, "Embrace your worth. Uplift those around you. In doing so, you will not only transform your life, but also the world." As the credits of his story rolled in his mind, Ethan knew this was no fairy tale ending. It was a beginning, rich with purpose and possibility. The months following the TEDx talk brought even more visibility to Rise Up. Donations poured in, allowing expansion to other cities. Portland, San Francisco. Ethan hired staff, including former participants, creating a cycle of empowerment. "Pay it forward" became the motto etched on every brochure. Eleanor integrated philanthropy into Grayson Innovations, matching employee donations and offering internships to Rise Up graduates. "You've inspired me," she told Ethan during a board meeting where he presented. "This is what legacy means." Lily flourished at art school, her talent blooming under expert guidance. She entered contests, winning a local award for a piece depicting hidden strength, a janitor with a crown of light. "It's you, Daddy," she said, beaming. Personal growth came in waves. Ethan attended therapy, unpacking years of abandonment and hardship. "You're not defined by your past," his counselor said, echoing his own lessons. Sarah and Ethan's relationship blossomed. A picnic by the lake turned into a proposal, simple and heartfelt. "You've been my light," he said, slipping a ring on her finger. The wedding was intimate at the estate, with Lily as flower girl and Eleanor walking him down the aisle. Victor's path crossed theirs once more at a charity event. He approached tentatively. "I've changed," he said. "Thanks to you." Ethan shook his hand. "We all can." In quiet moments, Ethan journaled his thoughts, distilling the essence of his transformation. Respect for all, perseverance through pain, kindness as currency. These were the pillars. They educated not just him, but everyone touched by his story. Viewers of his YouTube channel, where he shared updates, commented on how it motivated them to act with compassion, to persist in dreams, to value inner strength over external trappings. As he watched the sunset with his family, Eleanor, Sarah, Lily, Ethan felt complete. Life's twists had taught him profoundly. Rise not despite your scars, but because of them. And in that rising lift, others too.